I remember I used to go into, I think it was Costco, where they had that like blood pressure cuff. And I would go in there, and every time I'd go there with Kim, I would just like run off the side and slip my arm into this thing. Oddly enough, my blood pressure was always really low when I went to Costco. I don't know. I guess I just enjoyed it so much. It just relaxed me. I don't know. I go to like the doctor and get my blood pressure. It was like 20 points higher in both directions. Welcome back to another episode of Aging Backward, Growing Forward. On today's episode, I want to talk about something that I've mentioned previously on several episodes. You heard me say, know your numbers. Well, I've gotten a couple of questions about what are the numbers I should be knowing? Can you tell me more about the numbers? What should I ask? What tests should I get? And understanding and monitoring what I'm about to talk about will provide crucial insights for you, for your health, and really living a healthier lifestyle after you have some data and you can make some observations with that stuff. So let's jump right into it. The first thing I want to talk about are blood work, knowing your numbers on your blood work. What types of blood work should you get for lifespan, health span, longevity? Now, traditional health panels are usually a cardiolipid profile. You'll get your glucose done, but we want to go way deeper into a type of panel that we actually do it at our anti-aging centers at Serotonin. But a lot of functional medicine practitioners will understand what I'm about to talk about and will suggest some of these panels as well. You can always ask anything I'm telling you. You can go to your general practitioner and you can ask, hey, I want to get these tests done. And you got to know the names, you got to know what you want, and then you have to understand what they mean, those values. So let's talk a little bit about some of the precise tests that you really want to take a look at if you really care about longevity and what's happening inside your body. So we'll start with blood work. But we're also going to discuss a few other tests, things that you should understand, some metrics that you should have and you should understand as well. So when you're getting blood work, one of the things you should ask for, and I've got a ton of show notes on this, guys, a lot of research. I even have a copy, by the way, I even have a copy of my own blood work here, right? Like just to show you, I live this stuff. So you'll see that the numbers that I'm talking about are tests that I actually take, and the frequency that I take them, I'll share with you as well. So one of the things that I always look for on blood work is your CBC. And I'm going to read some definitions of this stuff, just so you understand it. Some of it might get a little bit in the weeds, but it's well worth it. So you can be more educated when you talk about this stuff. So CBC is your complete blood count. A CBC is a comprehensive blood test that evaluates several components of blood, including the red blood cells, the white blood cells, hemoglobin, hematocrit, and platelets. So let's discuss the significance of each part of the CBC test. Your RBCs, your red blood cells, they carry oxygen throughout your body. We discussed that with Dr. Scher on a previous episode. Your white blood cells are crucial for immune response. Your hemoglobin is oxygen-carrying protein in the red blood cells. Your hematocrit measures the proportion of blood that is made up of red blood cells. And then your platelets, they're essential for blood clotting. So those will all be individual components of the CBC. And again, the reason you want to know this, the implications for your health span is an abnormal CBC could result, the conditions that could show you that you're anemic, that you have an infection or a various blood disorder, and any one of those things can, impact your overall health. So understanding a CBC and being able to sit down and talk about that part of your blood work is super important with your practitioner. Another great panel to get added to your blood work would be a metabolic panel. And this panel includes various tests. It could be some things like glucose, electrolytes like sodium and potassium, enzymes, liver function, kidney function. These are really important. They're crucial for managing all kinds of things, muscle function and acid-base balance. The enzymes can tell you about your liver health. Creatine bun, BUN, monitors your kidney health. Sometimes you'll find these on your regular blood work that you're getting, but most people don't know what they mean or the significance of it or how to adjust or adapt if the number is out of line. So understanding what the abnormalities are and then how to address these abnormalities is really, really important. And your medical practitioner hopefully will be able to guide you through that. A metabolic panel is great to have. I do they're on every one of my panels. Every time I do a blood work, I look at my metabolic panel. Next up, your hormone levels. You've heard me talk about this on countless other episodes. This is one that is a non-negotiable. I think everybody should have this no matter what age you are. Your hormone levels, your thyroid hormone and your sex hormones. This includes your testosterone, your free testosterone, estradiol. This also includes your T3, T4, TSH. Also, FSH you want to throw in there, which is follicle stimulating hormone. You also want to know vitamin D. Some people lump vitamin D into the hormone panel because vitamin D is essential to understand when it has to do with hormones. Just a note on vitamin D. I mean, there was significant data on people during COVID that had low vitamin D levels and a really negative impact with COVID. In fact, there was I think they did a study as well on survival rate in low vitamin D. So vitamin D is tied to your hormone panel. It's something you really should understand and know about because it's very easy to fix if there's a deficiency. Understanding your thyroid hormone because it regulates metabolism, energy, and growth. Really important. As we age, certain thing happens, especially with women. This is one you really want to pay attention to also as part of understanding and balancing your hormones. And having imbalances, they can lead to so many conditions. We talk about the symptoms almost daily of low T. It's becoming more and more prominent at a younger age. People think that, if I'm in my 50s or 60s, this matters. This matters if you're in your late 20s and 30s. We've seen some people that have deficiencies in these major sexual hormones. And then understanding how you can fix that because there are several ways to optimize your hormones if in fact you are deficient. There's some challenges there. The symptoms are very obvious. You're sleepy, brain fog, low libido, hair thinning, skin crepiness. You take a nap, in the middle of the day, it's like all these things. Women, when you start getting hot flashes and night sweats, you want to start, if you're perimenopausal, understanding these numbers. So getting a number now so that later when you test again, you could see the changes and what's happening in the decline. And I will assure you there's always going to be a decline if you're not optimizing as you get older. So this is a big one. This is a really important one. It's not on most blood work. Most people, maybe they'll get just testosterone, but you really want to also get free testosterone and then sexual binding globulin hormone. And that's an important one. We've talked about that in another episode when we talked about the hormones, but that's a really important one for you and your doctor to discuss and how to manage that stuff. Next is your cardiolipid profile. This is on most blood work. You're usually going to get this test if you're going to a general practitioner, and you'll see your cholesterol on there, right? HDL, LDL, probably triglycerides. There's a couple other numbers you want to ask for if you're not getting them, and they may not be standard in your particular cardiolipid profile that your GP gives you. And I would tell you that getting apolipoprotein A and apolipoprotein B, as well as homocysteine, that's kind of really as important as just the LDL and HDL numbers. More and more research is being done on the impact of understanding these lipoproteins. I just want to take a moment and focus a little bit on apolipoprotein A and apolipoprotein B, and they're also known as ApoA, ApoB. And these are two really important proteins that are correlated with metabolism, transport of lipid fats in the body, and in your overall cardiovascular health and or lipid disorders. So let me just give it a moment here and chat about each one of these individually, because you're going to want to know this information. So just a little bit of insight on ApoA and ApoB. ApoA is related to your HDL, which is considered the good cholesterol, but understanding why it's good is have to understand ApoA. And similarly with ApoB, which is correlated to your LDL and VLDL, you want to understand what ApoB does, how it functions. And when that number is high, that's not good, right? So you got to understand, okay, well, how do I fix that? How do I suppress that? How do I get that under control? And again, in ApoA, that because it's with HDL, if that number is high, that's actually a good thing. But if it's low and your ApoB is high, you're at a pretty high risk for some problems, cardiovascularly speaking. So you really want to get a hold of that to manage cardiovascular disease. So it's really important to go one level deeper of just LDL and HDL, but also understanding ApoB. And by the way, it's a genetic variant. Like this, some of this is really driven by familial genetics. So you have to get this number, understand this number, and then understand how do I manage this with your practitioner. You want to speak to your general practitioner and or a cardiologist about how to manage that if in fact you have a challenge with this particular part of your blood work. One more I want to talk about is CRP, or C-reactive protein. C-reactive protein is an inflammation marker. If this is elevated, you definitely want to get this under control. I actually personally had an elevated CRP. It was like a 3.8. And today it's like a 0.8. So, I mean, there's something happening in your body if you have an elevated CRP and you want to talk to your medical practitioner how to manage that and get that down, because that is a significant inflammation marker that needs to be controlled. And again, that's not a standard one that's on most tests. if it's not on your particular blood work, ask for it, request it, and it's one you're going to want to keep an eye on, especially if it's elevated. So let's move on to talk about A1C. So most blood tests will have a fasted glucose, which is just in the moment. It's right now. So it's a very small snippet of information. Where A1C, that test measures the average blood glucose over a period of time, 2 to 3 months. And it does this by assessing the percentage of hemoglobin proteins coated with sugar. So this is like a really good understanding, especially for diabetes, pre-diabetic. So if that number starts clicking higher to 5.8, 6.0, or like, you've got a problem like that you need to manage. And some people will take it and they don't even know that they're pre-diabetic type 2. Like they have no idea that this is happening. They may have some symptoms, but they're not managing it. So if that number is elevated, you certainly want to talk to your healthcare practitioner about how to manage that and get that down. I mean, sometimes you'll need medication, of course, but you may be at a place where you're on what they call the borderline, and some changes in nutrition, exercise, and activity could really significantly impact lowering that number into a normal range. We've seen people that just are generally, they're sitting at a desk all day long. They don't have active, lifestyles. Their work job doesn't have moving around a lot. We just get them moving, 3, 4, 5 times a week, and all of a sudden that number magically comes right into place. So it's an easy number to fix, get it under control, manage it with some discipline. But you need to know that number, not just fasted glucose, which is usually a standard in a lot of blood work. You want to make sure you ask for your A1C as well. Just some other additional ones to your blood work that we should really just address and talk about that you may want to know. If you're a male, you want to know your PSA, your free PSA. This is related to your prostate. That's a number that you really want to understand and know the proper range to be in. And if you have a challenge, the earlier you figure it out, the much better off you'll be. DHEA as well. That's kind of related to hormones. That's an extra one. Also, knowing your DHEA number, if it's low, you can supplement that and get that up. It's really difficult to get DHEA through nutrition by eating. So supplementation is usually the best way to do that. Cortisol is another one that's really, really important. Knowing your cortisol level, that's a standard in us. There's always usually an inversion. If your testosterone is really low, generally your cortisol is high. So if we can manage one and it actually helps the other, and that inverse, we can work through medication and supplementation. But cortisol is also an indication you have some inflammation happening in your body as well. That's your stress hormone, by the way. So if that's really elevated, there's lots of things you can do. Obviously, exercise helps that. Meditation helps that. There's lots of things you could do to help that. Red light therapy bed will help reduce overall inflammation and cortisol levels. So there's a couple of great hacks to do to fix some of these things, but these are numbers that you want to know. So this is your blood work. There's lots of other things you could add. I mean, there's every so often I throw some extra things on there, growth hormone numbers, IGF-1. These are all the things you can add as you really start getting into learning about your body. But the ones we just talked about are really the critical ones that I think everyone, in my opinion, should really understand and know about. And then you can get finite and dive even deeper. And there'll be some other blood tests. Like I've got, a litany of these blood works, and each one of them I add another panel. Like, I'll throw homocysteine on there. That's what we want to look at. As you get into this, there's so many little things you can add. Just start with the basics, in my opinion. I think with the ones we just talked about are probably the best ones. But let's jump into some other numbers, things you should know. Obviously, your blood pressure is a really good one you should know. And your blood pressure, again, this is something that it's understanding. It's the systolic number over the diastolic number. It's measured in millimeters of mercury. A normal blood pressure is considered 120 over 80. You want to optimize that as best you can. Low blood pressure is an issue and high blood pressure is an issue. They're both significantly impactful to your health. But what we see more often than not is high blood pressure, right? I mean, whether it's stress or just how we eat, and maybe there's just too much sodium in your diet, it's not balanced enough, that'll drive it up. Lots of things can drive up your blood pressure, but managing blood pressure is really, really important. It doesn't have to be done always through medication. I used to personally have elevated blood pressure. High motor guy. It was, always stressed out. A lot of things happen 24/7. I actually managed my blood pressure, believe it or not, through a supplement of a beet juice extract, because the release of nitric oxide or additional nitric oxide in your blood, it has that relaxing effect on your blood vessels. So I was able to get my blood pressure way under control. In fact, I think mine now is like 116 over like 75 or 76. But I take a supplement regularly. I also take slow release L-arginine. That also helps improve nitric oxide, which again has that same effect as we just talked about. And I do a supplement of beet juice extract that has been incredibly successful for me. It's also great for performance. A lot of athletes use it. Endurance athletes use that as well, for the obvious reasons of what we just said. It has a good effect on your blood pressure and your body's ability to carry oxygen. Again, little tidbits, little rabbit holes we can go into here, but blood pressure is really important to know and understand. I remember I used to go into, I think it was Costco, where they had that like blood pressure cuff. And I would go in there, and every time I'd go there with Kim, I would just like run off the side and slip my arm into this thing. Oddly enough, my blood pressure was always really low when I went to Costco. I don't know. I guess I just enjoyed it so much. It just relaxed me. I don't know. I go to like the doctor and get my blood pressure. It was like 20 points higher in both directions. They also call that white coat syndrome, by the way. So kind of measuring your blood pressure in a consistent place where you're comfortable and relaxed will give you a better number. Sometimes when you go somewhere to measure it, like in your medical practitioner's office, you might just get a little bit nervous, and that'll just elevate your blood pressure, just the anxiety effect. So if you get a cuff at home, there's lots of great ones online. You should keep an eye on that. I don't say be obsessed about it. Measure it 3 times a day. I do have a best friend that actually does that. I think he's down to 2 times a day, but you could just keep an eye on it. If it's elevated, you want to measure it. Try something, measure it. Try some meditation, measure it. Like, you could do those kinds of things, but understanding the number, if it's elevated, you need to get that under control, because that is really impactful to your overall health span. Another one of my favorite numbers to know is your lean body mass versus your body fat percentage. A lot of people will understand their weight, like they'll know how much they weigh. That's the number they know when they associate this. It's not a bad number. It's just not the best number when you're trying to measure like how fit you are or what kind of shape your body's actually in. There's a litany of ways to learn about your lean body mass versus your body fat percentage. We use in-body scanners at Serotonin. There's some places that have DEXA scans, or some doctors' offices have those things. They're phenomenal. There's a submersion way of doing it also. You submerge yourself in water to measure this. But for us, we believe the least invasive way, and it's a very good mark, is the scanner that we use. The benefit to knowing this number, especially if you're on a program, in a weight loss program, or you're training, or if you're on a weight loss medication, is if you don't know your lean body mass when you start, you don't know what type of weight you're losing, because you may just be using the scale. Like I said, not the best and optimal way to have a number on what your body is consistent of, right? So understanding your body composition. So knowing body comp is really important. So what we do is we measure you when you first start on, if you're on a medication or a weight loss program, for instance, and then as you're going, if you start losing muscle, yeah, you're losing weight, but you don't want to lose muscle. Remember, guys, muscle is it's the powerhouse, the mitochondria. It's that fat burning machinery in your body. So the more muscle you have, the more fat you can burn. So if we start taking logs off the fire, muscle out of your body, there's less flame there. There's less burning ability. So a lot of doctors that I talk to, they say, we don't like to even prescribe some of those medications because, yeah, they lose weight, but if they start losing muscle mass, like, we don't want to really manage that. So that's why we do that in our programs. And I'm a big advocate for this, because what we do is, you'll have to increase your protein. Maybe you'll take an essential amino acid supplement. It's like an insurance policy for muscle. We have all kinds of hacks to help make sure that as you're doing this caloric restriction, which is what most people are doing when they're trying to lose weight, we're increasing the ability for your body to stay anabolic, right? So knowing your body comp, lean body mass versus body fat percentage, and then visceral fat as well, very important to know. These numbers are really, the more granular they get, the better. But when you're looking to make a change, a fitness change in your body, you need to know this information. So, and you should know it even if you're not looking to make a change. Like, where are you today? As you age, what's your bone density versus your lean body mass, muscle mass versus your body fat? If you're losing bone density as you're getting older, especially female, the women that are listening to this, osteopenia, osteoporosis, like, you've got to adjust, and you've got to make some kind of change to fix that, right? You've got to get that going the other direction again. And obviously strength training is going to be a key element there, but also nutrition. There's a lot of things you can do nutritionally. So those are like some of the key points of like knowing your numbers. Those are the basics. Those are the 101s. Those are like the ante to the table of health span. We can literally do an episode on each one of these specifically. And we might, there's some of these that are so important that we'll do an episode just on them. You've got to invest in your health. And this is an investment in your health. This knowledge is an investment, because now you can make a real map. It's really difficult to have a plan without knowing where you are on the map to start, right? The journey needs to start. You need to know where you are, where am I today? And then the frequency of how often you do this test, that's a question you might be thinking right now. I would tell you the frequency for these tests are at minimum twice a year. I do them quarterly. So every 90 days, I do them often. And now if you're in a hormone replacement therapy program, you might do blood work, after the first 6 weeks, then again, every 90 days. And then eventually you'll go to maybe twice a year. Semi-annual is totally fine. But if you've got a condition that you're monitoring, you may be a little more frequently. You may be every 90 days, or in some cases, there might be a test or two you want to do a little more frequently. When it comes to lean body mass, you can do that. We do those tests bi-weekly with our clients. And there's a reason why. We want to really keep our eye on that. So we talk about body composition. That one you'll do more frequently. But the blood work, at least twice a year, quarterly if you're in some type of improvement therapy, so you can monitor it and see where you are. And then once you're past year 1 or 2 of that, you can back off to maybe, once or twice a year. Remember, guys, knowledge is power, and understanding these metrics is a great step toward living a longer and healthier life. So my goal with the show is to give you these tidbits, to give you these nuggets, right? I always talk about the nuggets. And you write some of this stuff down, you take some notes on this stuff, and then go back to maybe your general practitioner, your healthcare practitioner, your health coach, whoever you're dealing with, maybe it's your trainer at your gym, and ask some more questions, and then make that investment. Again, insurance may not cover this. If it doesn't, who cares? You spend money on cars and clothes and all kinds of other things. Make an investment in you. This is an investment in your information, the data for your body. So you need to know this information, and then take the next step, learn something about it, and then take an action toward achieving that goal, toward making yourself healthier and stronger. With that being said, I'm so thankful you joined us today for this episode. I look forward to seeing you next time on the next episode of Aging Backward, Growing Forward.